Jasmine stood in the middle of the bright bridal boutique, sunlight spilling through the glass walls and sparkling off the white gowns that surrounded her. The room smelled of roses and perfume, and laughter filled the air, until it didn't. The sound of the slap was sharp and sudden. Everyone froze. Renee's hand trembled in the air, her eyes blazing with jealousy. You just had to make everything about you, didn't you, Jasmine? Always showing off, she shouted, her voice echoing across the silent room. Jasmine didn't say a word. Her cheek burned, not just from the hit, but from the humiliation. Bridesmaids stared. The boutique staff exchanged awkward looks. Even the soft music playing in the background seemed to fade away. For a moment, Jasmine thought she might cry. But she didn't. She simply stood still, her heart pounding so loudly she could barely hear Renee's angry words. You could have picked something simple, Renee snapped, her face red with anger. But no. Your dress has to be the most expensive one here. You always have to outshine everyone. Jasmine wanted to tell her the truth, that the only reason Renee was even standing in this store, trying on designer gowns, was because Jasmine had secretly paid for everything. The dress, the venue, the decorations, even the down payment for the honeymoon. But she stayed quiet. She didn't want to embarrass her sister. She didn't want to make things worse. So she just nodded slightly, forcing a small smile as her vision blurred with tears. I'm sorry, she whispered, though she wasn't even sure what she was apologizing for. The boutique manager stepped forward awkwardly. Maybe we should take a short break, she suggested. The bridesmaids murmured uncomfortably, pretending to look at dresses, but everyone's eyes kept flicking back to Jasmine. Renee crossed her arms, breathing heavily, still glaring. You always think you're better than me, she muttered. You think money fixes everything. Jasmine looked at her sister for a long moment. She wanted to remind her that money was the only reason her wedding was happening at all. But instead, she just turned and quietly walked toward the door. Her heels clicked softly against the marble floor. No one stopped her. As she stepped outside into the warm Atlanta sun, the light felt harsh on her tear-streaked face. She took a deep breath, holding back the sob rising in her chest. For years, she had done everything she could to keep her family together, to make Renee happy, to make their father proud. But standing there alone on the sidewalk, Jasmine realized something had broken. She wiped her cheek, straightened her posture, and whispered to herself, "Not this time." Then she walked away from the boutique, leaving behind the laughter, the whispers, and her sister's rage. Everything was about to change. Jasmine and Renee lost their mother when they were still little girls. Their father tried his best at first, but after a year he remarried, and things were never the same again. The house that once felt warm and full of laughter slowly turned cold and distant. Their stepmother was polite but never loving, and their father became quieter, spending more time at work than with his daughters. Jasmine, the younger one, learned early that she could only rely on herself. She studied hard, worked part-time jobs, and dreamed of building a life that no one could take away from her. By the time she was in her 20s, she had started her own event planning business, something that grew from nothing into one of the most respected companies in Atlanta. People admired her confidence, her calm nature, and her ability to make every event shine. Renee, on the other hand, was different. She was emotional, full of energy, and always wanted attention. Where Jasmine found strength and independence, Renee found comfort in being cared for. She bounced from one job to another, never staying long. She dated men who promised a lot but never delivered. And no matter what Jasmine achieved, Renee always found a way to compare herself and feel smaller. Their relationship was complicated. Jasmine loved Renee deeply. She had always felt protective of her older sister, even when Renee acted jealous or said hurtful things. But as they grew older, that love started to feel like a burden. Now Jasmine's wedding was only 6 weeks away. She was engaged to Marcus, a kind, patient man who saw through her strong exterior and loved her for her quiet heart. He made her feel safe in a way she hadn't felt since childhood. Renee was also engaged to a man named Derek. Derek was charming at first but couldn't seem to keep a steady job. He had big dreams but little action. And Renee often called Jasmine crying about bills, fights, and disappointments. Jasmine always stepped in to help. When Renee needed money for her engagement party, Jasmine paid. When their father got behind on his credit card debt, Jasmine quietly took care of it so no one would argue. When Renee found her dream wedding dress but couldn't afford it, Jasmine told the boutique to charge it to her own account. She never told anyone. She just wanted to keep the peace, to hold her family together, even if it meant breaking herself a little each time. Marcus sometimes tried to talk to her about it. "You can't keep fixing everyone's problems, Jazz," he'd say gently, brushing her hand. "At some point, you have to let people face the mess they make." Jasmine would smile, but there was sadness in her eyes. "If I don't help, everything falls apart," she'd whisper. But even she knew that wasn't true anymore. Lately, she could feel something changing, a quiet exhaustion growing inside her. Every conversation with Renee seemed to carry hidden tension. Renee would smile, but her words always had an edge. "You're so lucky, Jazz. Everything just works out for you," she'd say, half teasing, half bitter. Jasmine would respond softly, "It's not luck, Renee. I just work really hard." Renee would roll her eyes and change the topic, pretending not to care. But Jasmine could always see the hurt behind her sister's sharp tone. The truth was, Renee missed their mother just as much as Jasmine did. Maybe even more. Losing her had left a hole Renee never learned to fill. Instead, she tried to find love and validation anywhere she could, even if it meant competing with the one person who had always loved her the most. Late one night, Jasmine sat in her office, surrounded by color palettes and wedding invitations, when her best friend Leah dropped by with coffee. Leah sighed as she looked at the stack of unpaid invoices Jasmine had quietly covered for her sister's wedding. "You keep fixing everyone's mess," she said gently. "But who's fixing yours?" Jasmine didn't answer right away. She just stared at the screen, her fingers still on the keyboard. "I'm fine," she said finally, though her voice was tired. Leah reached out and squeezed her hand. "You always say that." Jasmine smiled faintly, her eyes distant. "Because if I stop saying it," she murmured, "I might actually have to admit I'm not." As Leah left, Jasmine sat alone in the soft glow of her office light, the silence pressing in around her. She loved her sister. She loved her family. But love, she was starting to realize, shouldn't hurt this much. And deep down, she wondered how much longer she could keep pretending that everything was okay. During a joint bridal shopping day, Jasmine and Renee stood side by side in front of a large mirror. The bridal boutique shimmered with light, silk gowns, sparkling veils, and soft music playing in the background. It was supposed to be a happy day, a memory they could share as sisters before both their weddings. But things didn't feel right from the start. Renee frowned as Jasmine stepped out of the fitting room in her gown. It was a beautiful, hand-sewn dress, elegant but simple, with delicate lace around the neckline. The kind of dress that drew quiet admiration, not loud attention. Yet somehow it still made Jasmine glow. The boutique staff smiled and whispered to each other, clearly impressed. "You look stunning," one of them said. Renee crossed her arms. "Of course she does," she muttered under her breath. Jasmine turned to her with a soft smile. "What do you think? Too much?" she asked kindly. Renee's eyes flashed. "Too much? No, Jasmine. It's perfect for you." Her tone was sharp, biting. Jasmine's friends exchanged uneasy looks. They had seen this before. The way Renee's jealousy would slowly creep in whenever Jasmine was praised. Then it got worse. The boutique owner brought out Jasmine's chosen gown for final fitting, and mentioned the price quietly. Renee overheard. Her expression hardened. "So that's what it costs," Renee said loudly, forcing a laugh. "No wonder you like it. You always go for the most expensive thing, don't you?" The room went silent. Jasmine blinked, unsure how to respond. "Renee, it's not about the price. I just..." Renee cut her off. "Oh please. You love showing off, Jasmine. You think you're better than everyone just because you have money." Jasmine's chest tightened. She wanted to say, "I paid for your wedding too." But she couldn't. She just took a deep breath and said quietly, "That's not true." Renee stepped closer, her voice rising. "You couldn't even let me have one thing. One day where I'm not standing in your shadow." Jasmine's friends tried to step in, but before anyone could react, Renee's hand came up, fast and sharp. The slap echoed across the boutique. Everyone froze. The sound seemed to hang in the air. The shop assistants stopped moving. Even the music seemed to stop. Jasmine didn't move. Her cheek burned, but she didn't speak. Her eyes glistened, not from anger, but from deep hurt. Renee's face went pale as she realized what she'd done, but pride kept her from apologizing. She crossed her arms and said coldly, "Maybe now you'll stop pretending to be perfect." Jasmine looked at her sister, the girl she had once shared a bedroom with, the one she had loved and protected all her life, and felt something inside her shift. Her voice was calm when she finally spoke. "I'm sorry for causing a scene," she said softly, but not to Renee. She turned to the boutique staff. "I'll take care of any damages or delays. Thank you for your time." Her words were polite, but her tone carried quiet strength. Renee frowned. "You're walking away?" Just like that. Jasmine didn't answer. She picked up her purse, turned toward the door, and walked out, her posture straight, her face unreadable. Behind her, the room stayed frozen for a few seconds before whispers began again. Outside, the afternoon sun was bright, almost blinding. Jasmine took a shaky breath, her hands trembling. For years she had forgiven, explained and fixed everything. She had covered every mistake, soothed every argument, and carried every burden to keep the peace. But not this time. She touched her cheek gently, then let her hand fall to her side. A quiet strength settled in her chest, painful, but freeing. Without looking back, Jasmine walked down the street, each step slower but steadier than the last. Something had ended inside that store, but something new had begun. Jasmine stopped answering calls. She ignored the messages that kept coming in, from her sister, her father, even a few mutual friends. Every notification made her chest tighten, so she turned her phone face down and let it buzz in silence. She canceled all the joint plans she and Renee had made, cake tastings, venue visits, even a small family dinner their father had planned. She needed space. For the first time, she wasn't rushing to fix things, but silence didn't stop the noise. Renee started telling people her own version of what happened at the boutique. She said Jasmine had been showing off, that she always tried to steal attention, that she thought she was better than everyone else. The story spread quickly. Cousins whispered, old friends texted Jasmine awkward apologies, and even a few business clients looked at her differently. Jasmine tried to ignore it, but each rumor felt like a small cut. She had spent years helping her sister, and now she was being painted as the villain. Marcus noticed the change. He found her sitting in her office late one night, staring blankly at her laptop. The screen showed a half-written email, but her hands weren't moving. "You haven't eaten," he said softly, placing a takeout bag beside her. She didn't look up. "I'm just tired," she whispered. Marcus sat across from her, studying her face. "You don't have to hide it, Jazz. I know it's not just tiredness." Her eyes filled with tears. "She hates me, Marcus, and I don't even know why. I've done everything I can for her." He reached out and took her hand. "Because she doesn't hate you," he said gently. "She hates how much she depends on you. That's not your fault." Jasmine shook her head. "I can't stand how everyone expects me to fix this. Like it's my job to hold the family together no matter what." Marcus's tone was calm but firm. "You don't owe anyone your peace. You deserve respect, even from your sister." His words stayed with her long after he left the room. The next morning, her father called. His voice was weary, the way it always got when he talked about family drama. "Jazz, honey," he began. "I talked to your sister. She feels awful about what happened." Jasmine didn't answer. He sighed. "You know how your sister gets. Just let it go. You two have been through enough already." She wanted to scream, "I always let it go." Instead, she said quietly, "I'm tired of pretending it's okay, Dad." There was silence on the other end, then a soft, disappointed sigh. "You've changed," he said. When the call ended, Jasmine sat there for a long time, staring out the window. Maybe she had changed. Maybe she finally needed to. That night, she dreamed of when they were little, before everything fell apart. She saw Renee as a teenager, standing in front of her protectively after some older kids teased Jasmine for being shy. "Leave her alone," Renee had said, stepping between them. Back then, Renee was her hero. But as they grew up, something shifted. Every time Jasmine succeeded, Renee seemed to shrink. The closeness they once had turned into quiet competition. And Jasmine had spent her whole adult life trying to win her sister's love back. The next week, Jasmine went through her credit card bills and froze. There were charges she didn't recognize. A bridal makeup deposit, catering costs, and payments to vendors she hadn't hired. Her heart sank. She knew immediately who it was. Renee had used her card. Again. Jasmine sat in silence, staring at the numbers on the screen. The betrayal felt heavier this time. Not just because of the money, but because it was done behind her back, even after everything that happened. Her phone buzzed with a new message from Renee. "Can we talk? You've been so cold lately. I miss my sister." Jasmine stared at it, her throat tight. The words looked sweet, but they didn't match the actions. Instead of replying, she opened her laptop and began canceling payments. One by one, she ended every automatic transfer connected to Renee's wedding. The florist, the photographer, the dressmaker. It felt strange at first, almost wrong. But with each cancellation, she felt a little lighter. Leah, her friend, called later that night. "How are you holding up?" Jasmine sighed softly. "I think I'm done fixing everyone else's life." Leah was quiet for a moment, then said gently, "Maybe that's the best gift you can give yourself, and them." For the first time in a long time, Jasmine slept without waking up in the middle of the night. She still loved her sister. She always would. But she was finally learning that love didn't mean losing herself. Something inside her was changing. And deep down, she knew the next time they saw each other, nothing would ever be the same again. Renee's wedding rehearsal dinner was held in a beautiful restaurant filled with soft music, candles, and laughter. Family members chatted, glasses clinked, and for a while, everything seemed peaceful. Renee was glowing, sitting beside Derek, smiling proudly as if nothing bad had ever happened. Then, the room went quiet for a moment as the doors opened. Jasmine walked in. Everyone turned to look. It had been weeks since anyone had seen her. No calls, no messages, no contact. Renee froze, her smile fading for a second before she quickly forced it back. "Oh wow," she said with a tight laugh. "You actually came." Jasmine smiled politely. "Of course. It's your big weekend." Her voice was calm, steady. She looked beautiful, confident, but different. There was a quiet strength about her now. Renee stood up to hug her, awkwardly. "I'm glad you're here," she said. "Let's just forget everything, okay?" Jasmine nodded softly. "Sure," she said, but her tone held something Renee couldn't read. Dinner went on. People laughed, shared memories, and toasted the happy couple. Renee relaxed again, joking with Derek and talking about their future together. Everything seemed back to normal, until the wedding coordinator approached Renee, leaning down to whisper something. Renee frowned. "What do you mean canceled?" she whispered back. "That can't be right." The coordinator looked nervous. "I'm so sorry, but all payments for the venue, catering, and decor have been stopped. We've been trying to reach the payer for confirmation." Renee blinked, confused, and then slowly turned her head toward Jasmine. "You," she said, her voice shaking. The room went silent. All eyes turned to Jasmine. Jasmine took a slow sip of water before standing up. "Yes," she said simply. "I was paying for it all, every single thing. But not anymore." Gasps filled the room. Renee's face turned pale, her mouth opening and closing as if trying to find words. You were paying for my wedding?" she stammered. "Why would you even?" Jasmine's eyes softened, but her voice stayed steady. "Because I wanted you to have what you dreamed of. Because I wanted peace in our family. Because I thought if I gave enough, loved enough, it would make things right between us." Renee's eyes filled with tears, but they weren't of gratitude. They were of humiliation and anger. "You wanted to make me look small," she said through gritted teeth. "You wanted everyone to know that I couldn't do anything without you." Jasmine shook her head slowly. "No, Renee. I just wanted us both to stand tall." For a long moment, no one spoke. The quiet stretched through the room like a thin thread ready to snap. Jasmine looked around at the faces staring back at her. Her father shocked, friends whispering to each other, Derek avoiding eye contact. Then she looked back at her sister. "I've spent years fixing everything for everyone," she said softly. "Paying the bills, smoothing over fights, keeping secrets. But I'm tired, Renee. I'm tired of being punished for caring too much." Her voice trembled slightly, but she didn't look away. "I thought if I kept helping, maybe you'd love me the way you used to. But all I did was make it worse." Renee's eyes were red now, her anger breaking into confusion and shame. "You could have just told me," she said quietly. "I tried," Jasmine whispered. "In 100 little ways. You just didn't want to hear it." For a moment, it seemed like Renee might apologize, but pride stopped her again. She looked around, realizing everyone had seen her breakdown. Her perfect night was ruined. She turned away, wiping her tears roughly. Jasmine sighed, her shoulders relaxing as if she'd finally set down a heavy weight. "I wish you happiness," she said softly. "But I can't keep losing myself to make you happy." Marcus, who had been sitting quietly the whole time, finally stood up beside her. He placed a gentle hand on her back. "She's doing the right thing," he said calmly to the room. "And I've known about this for a while. I supported her decision." Jasmine looked up at him, surprised but grateful. His calm presence gave her strength. Renee looked between them, shaking her head. "So this is it? You're just done with me?" Jasmine's eyes softened. "No. I'll never stop loving you," she said quietly. "But I have to start loving myself too." She reached for Marcus's hand, and together they turned to leave. The room stayed silent, the kind of silence that comes when truth finally fills the air. As Jasmine walked out of the restaurant, the cool night breeze brushed against her face. Her heart hurt, but for the first time, it didn't feel heavy with guilt. It felt light, clean. Behind her, Renee stood frozen, surrounded by everything that had just fallen apart. And for Jasmine, that was the moment she knew. Endings could also be beginnings. Jasmine felt guilt, but also relief. For the first time in years, she didn't wake up feeling like she had to fix something or someone. The burden she had carried for so long was finally gone, even if it left behind a quiet ache in her heart. Renee's wedding was postponed. The news spread quickly among family and friends, and soon the gossip began. Everyone had a version of the story. Some said Jasmine embarrassed her sister. Others whispered that Renee had gone too far. Jasmine didn't try to correct anyone. She had no energy left to explain. When her father called, his tone was softer this time. "You could have handled it differently," he said. "Maybe," Jasmine replied. "But for once, I handled it for me." There was silence on the line, and then he sighed. "You sound stronger," he admitted quietly. Jasmine smiled faintly. "I think I am." Days turned into weeks. The hurt began to fade, replaced by a calm acceptance. She missed her sister, the version of Renee she used to laugh with late at night, the one who brushed her hair and told her stories when they were little. But that Renee was buried under years of jealousy and pride, and Jasmine couldn't keep digging herself deeper trying to find her. One morning, she sat at her desk and wrote a short note on a plain white card. "I still love you, but I can't keep loving you more than you love yourself." She sealed the envelope and sent it to Renee's address. No explanations, no anger, just truth. That day, something inside her finally settled. Instead of revenge or bitterness, Jasmine chose peace. She didn't post anything online, didn't argue, didn't try to win anyone over. She simply focused on her life. Her business began to grow faster than ever. With her mind clear and her energy no longer spent fixing family problems, she poured her heart into her work. Clients noticed her creativity, her patience, and her calm presence. Soon she was planning events for high-end clients across Atlanta. Every success reminded her that strength could come from pain, if you used it right. Marcus stood by her through it all. He never pushed her to talk about Renee unless she wanted to. Some evenings they'd sit quietly on the balcony, watching the city lights. Jasmine would rest her head on his shoulder, feeling safe. "I'm proud of you," he told her one night. "You finally chose yourself." Jasmine smiled softly. "It feels strange," she admitted. "Like I lost something, but gained something bigger." "What did you gain?" he asked. "Peace," she said simply. "And I think that's worth everything." Their relationship deepened in quiet, steady ways, built not on drama or sacrifice, but on honesty and understanding. Marcus reminded her that love didn't need to hurt to be real. Months later, Jasmine looked at her calendar and realized her own wedding was just around the corner. She hadn't even noticed how time had flown. There was no stress, no guilt, just excitement and calm. Sometimes late at night, she still thought about Renee. She hoped her sister was healing too in her own way. Jasmine didn't wish her harm. She just hoped Renee would one day understand that love couldn't grow from resentment. Standing by her window one evening, Jasmine whispered to herself, "Maybe this is how love really works. Not by holding on, but by letting go." And for the first time in a long while, her heart felt light, free, and at peace. Jasmine walked past the same bridal boutique, where she had been slapped months ago. The sunlight poured through the big glass windows, just like that day, but everything felt different now. Inside, she saw a young bride standing on the same platform where she once stood, laughing with her friends, twirling in a gown that sparkled under the lights. The room was full of warmth and joy. Jasmine paused on the sidewalk, watching for a moment. She didn't feel the sting of that memory anymore. No anger, no sadness, just peace. A small, gentle smile appeared on her face. She remembered the pain, the humiliation, the tears she'd held back, but they no longer controlled her. That chapter of her life was closed. For a moment, she thought about Renee. She didn't know how her sister was doing, but she silently hoped she was finding her own kind of healing. Jasmine had learned that forgiveness didn't always mean going back. Sometimes it simply meant letting your heart rest. As she stood there, the breeze lifted her hair, and she felt the sunlight warm her skin. It reminded her how far she had come, from the girl who stayed quiet to keep peace, to the woman who learned that peace must begin within. A calm voice echoed in her mind, like a soft truth she finally understood. Sometimes love means letting go, not out of anger, but out of self-respect. Because peace isn't bought, it's earned. Jasmine took a deep breath and turned away from the boutique. Her heels clicked lightly on the sidewalk as she walked forward, the city glowing in the golden afternoon light. Each step felt lighter, freer. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. The sunlight followed her as she walked, her face calm, her heart steady. Jasmine was finally free, finally whole. Hi besties. Sparkling Heart, thank you so much for watching till the end. If you felt Jasmine's journey, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more emotional stories. See you in the next one. Bye. Sparkles.